morning, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining the part of the globe. Welcome to the RGM Roundtable Series 6. The topic today is RGM in the age of AI, from strategy to scale. And we have stellar of a cast of of the speakers on the panel over here. Starting with Harry Ergan, who's Vice President Revenue Management at Ajinomoto. The second speaker is Colin McQuay, Senior Director and Head of Strategic Revenue Management at Nestle USA, and Nuno Alexandre, Global RGM Lead of Foods Division at Unilever. Welcome, all of you, gentlemen. So, we are so privileged to have you on the panel today. Uh, is it okay if we start with a brief introduction of yours? And Harry, you can start if you're okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here today. My name is Harry Ergan. I work at the Ajinomoto Group, and I run the revenue management team for North America.
Thank you.
I'll go. Good morning, folks. It's good to see all of you. Thanks for having me, Saurabh. Colin McQuay. I lead we call it Strategic Revenue Management Group at Nestle USA. Thrilled to be here. I come from a bit of a finance world, and I bring that to the RGM space, and excited to talk about all the fun stuff we got going on today.
Thank you. Nuno?
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, Saurabh, for the invitation. Very happy to be here in this panel with this amazing set of experts in the foods world. I am responsible for customer strategy and planning in foods in Unilever, specifically on the condiment side, but I'm also leading the RGM agenda for foods. And strong, big background on this commercial space, a lot of fun on this RGM space, so hence I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Nuno, and we are looking forward to having this conversation started. Before that, a few housekeeping rules. The session is recorded. The question will be via the Q&A bar, 15 minutes at the end of it. There would be no slides, no vendor pitches, just honest conversations from the commercial trenches. No proprietary information will be shared on this platform. We'll speak from our experiences, but nothing specific to any organizational initiative, etc., will be shared on this. With that, Harry, I'll come to you with the first question. You've led revenue growth management at two very different companies, very large beverages company and Ajinomoto Foods, where you're working currently. What has it been like moving from a highly established RGM environment into one where you have had the opportunity to help shape and evolve the capability more directly, right? And in those early stages, how do you build credibility and earn a strategic seat at the table?
Thank you for having me. Again, really excited to be here today with the team, being part of the conversation and share some of the lessons through my journey. I have done revenue management at PepsiCo and now at Ajinomoto. I think there were two different starting lines. At PepsiCo, the RGM infrastructure is already very established, right? So there are the tools, governance, the playbooks, they were mature. The challenge there was optimizing and scaling and establish capacity. So whereas at Ajinomoto Group, the opportunity is much more transformational. We are not inheriting a machine, we are actually building one. And when you build something from the ground up, every decision either creates a foundation or it will create a commercial debt that you will eventually have to unwind. So the temptation for RGM practitioners is to jump straight into sophistication, right? So elasticity models or promotion optimization, various AI tools, but you don't earn the seat at the table with sophisticated models. You earn it by mastering the fundamentals first, right? So, and in my view, there are probably four pillars. So again, to make this right, so fundamentals first, visibility tools, commercial guardrails, and the tangible, the value creation piece. So if I start with the fundamentals, before building any tool, any models, answer a few basic questions. What are we selling, to whom, what net price? After all the trade, promotion, customer investments, what's the actual profitability, right? And in many organizations, these answers are very fragmented. Sales will see the volume, finance will see the margin, the marketing team, they will see the brand equity, but nobody is looking at the entire commercial system. And the reality is that margin is not captured in the boardroom. You have to actually capture it in the last few feet at the shelf, in the pack, and at the moment of the purchase. So before you optimize anything, as a first pillar, build a clean baseline. So the one version of the truth that sales, finance, commercial teams can align around, because if people do not trust the numbers, they will never trust the recommendations coming from the RGM team. The second one was the visibility. Many companies have margin leakage. They just can't see it yet. But we built promo ROI trackers, pricing dashboards, margin waterfalls, not because dashboards are actually exciting, but they would expose hidden decisions. Where are we over discounting? Which promotions are truly incremental? Are we treating very different customers exactly the same? And once you start answering those questions confidently, people will start seeing RGM as more than just a reporting function, and they will start seeing as a commercial, what I would call commercial decision intelligence. The third one is the commercial guardrails. Try not to become the pricing police. You need to make the commercial logic explicit. If you don't define your pricing architecture internally, the market will actually define it for you through either retailer pressure, competitive actions, or you'll just end up doing a lot of short-term firefighting. So establish pricing corridors, differentiated approaches by customer types, and you need to know clearly where you would flex and where you would not flex. So these guardrails are not about being rigid. They're about maintaining commercial discipline under pressure, right? And the last one, I think it's very important, is the tangible, what I would call the value creation piece, right? So credibility is not being built by being theoretically correct. It is being built by being commercially useful. And you don't need to have 10 perfect wins. You need one or two highly visible moments where leadership says, you know what, we would have not seen this without RGM. And maybe it's a promo analysis that uncovers unprofitable volume. Maybe it's a pricing recommendation that protects margin and share. Maybe it's a pack architecture decision that improves mix without hurting velocities, right? And that's the turning point. Before the organization sees revenue management improving real decisions, the function moves upstream into strategy, planning, and growth eventually, right? So, and also last thing I'll say is you'll never have 100% certainty. Great revenue management organizations do not wait for perfect information. Build a strong guardrails, make structured decisions with 75-80% clarity, and then recalibrate. Constantly recalibrate quickly as the reality changes, right? And that combination of discipline, agility, and the commercial impact is what transforms the revenue management functions from an analytics function into more like what I would call a strategic growth capability, right? And it's the connecting tissue between strategy, execution, and profitable growth.
No, thank you so much for that answer, Harry. And I agree with you that it's not about importing the sophisticated playbooks from your earlier experiences, but it is mostly about solving a commercial problem the business is already losing sleep over, right? The instinct to lead with frameworks is something that you need to resist. Relevance is what would earn you the seat at the table. And that's what, you beautifully put in over there. I'm coming to you, Colin, now. And in our earlier conversation, you described your role as developing new capabilities in data science and technology to drive sustainable adoption of RGM analytics across Nestle USA's full family of brands. Where does the biggest adoption gap still exist? Is it a people problem, a process problem, or a technology problem?
Yeah, great question. And look, I sit in a fun space where my job is really democratizing revenue management, making sure everybody understands what they need to know to make this a true organizational discipline and competitive advantage. And so with that, I don't think we're in a place where we don't have access to tools, analytics, simple things like Harry talked about, the fundamentals. That is not the unique challenge anymore. It's people and process. It's how do you help every individual that makes small or large decisions in their individual space, an account team that's planning their promotional calendar, a headquarter team planning their price strategy, et cetera, understand the from to that enables them to adopt better and better technology, better and better tools. It goes back, and I'll build on what Harry talked about around the trust, right? You have to be able to trust the analytics that you are being provided, that they do two things. A, they understand your context. They are not theory, they are practice, and they help me with whatever it is that I have to go do. Drive share, drive profit, drive top line, et cetera. And Two, that they work in my context, right? They understand the part of my business that I'm in. And so that's what we work on. We spend a lot of time on the change management of this, in the sense that it's not about some perfect tool or some perfect piece of analytics. And frankly, I think the way in which AI is advancing makes the art of spending 2 years to design some perfect tool almost obsolete, because the technology is advancing so rapidly. It's more about, how do you want someone to make a decision differently? And then how do you help them do that over and over and over? And it's about what's in it for them, how it helps them, how you support them. But to me, that's what this democratized concept's about. And that's where you turn your RGM team from the analytical doer, so to speak, to that commercial steer, right? Because everyone is doing a piece of this.
I totally agree with you. I think the adoption gap is almost never the technology, even when it was not so advanced. It was always around the process and the people. You need to design and break this adoption by creating processes around your business, around your analysts, around your decision makers, and people who were never given a reason to trust the output, right? So I agree with both of you, Colin and Harry. Coming to you, Nuno, you have written and spoken about breaking the siloed mentality in RGM, and you have talked about moving away from the monolithic RGM team mindset. Uh, with the sheer scale of your portfolio at your current job, how do you operationalize RGM as an integrated commercial capability rather than a standalone function?
Well, that's an easy question, right? So obvious, we start from there. But look, I think, jokes aside, I think both Harry and Colin already alluded a bit to it, and I think organizations really, and I'm thinking about Unilever, right? So we recognize the organization recognize the relevance of this capability into the business, right? So it's very intrinsically recognized. They can see a lot of the value that it can add to the business. But in the end, is that piece that Colin just alluded to, is kind of that democratization, is that integration of this way of thinking into the daily jobs of people, right? So, and breaking that piece around, thinking that RGM is going to bring that magical wand that will in a specific moment in time give that answer that will make a difference, or really change or break, right? It's not that it cannot do it, but the point is that this sort of investment, time, people, money, and so on around such a capability to expect for that magical moment is kind of a bit absurd, right? So I think for me, I would split the question and think about our reality in two points, right? So on one hand, thinking about our local organizations, I would say we really need to create the ways of working to get this right? So, and when I say ways of working in a simple manner, I'm talking about how do we, really marry or make kind of as a synonym between, or create a synonym between what is the growth plan and the RGM plan. So they're not two separate entities, right? So which is, let's say, maybe a starting point for us, or was a starting point for us a few years back. But over time, we saw that if we continue to keep things separate, we're just creating additional barriers to really the true embedment of this. Then moving into a space where we don't have the let's say the analytics nerd or freak or whatever kind of expert in the corner or in some sort of hidden office, just churning analysis or analytics to get this done, right? So it's about really having everybody understanding their role. And to Colin's point, understanding their role, what do they need to do, in every moment of the business cycle to get the most out of it. And also what Harry was alluding to, right? So to build that trust, build that credibility, and build that, stronger decision point. So, having sales really obviously executing a lot of that, but, leading, for example, in the trade term kind of, execution and strategy also, right? Having that ownership is really important so that we take the best decisions that really connect to our portfolio, or how our, marketing folks have a strong say in terms of portfolio or strategic pricing, right? So a lot of different roles that really need to play a role, that need to play their part in the decision making process. And of course, connecting that to the short, medium term and long term kind of planning routines, but also to Harry's point before, that those clear so what's, right? So this is why I'm doing this, and this is how this is going to really make a difference. And I would even say that uh, the step that we're taking to more descriptive versus more predictive versus descriptive is also enabling a very, very strong value accretion, so to speak, of the decisions. That's the first dimension. So in the short term, but obviously in the longer term. So the second dimension is more the long term, which obviously enables more the central level discussion, is where we build the long-term portfolio pipeline, for example, right, where we really can seed more kind of opportunities or solutions at scale, right? And that's where I think that bringing the RGM thinking into play at the central level will deliver significant impact. But again, really integrated in both, either we bring solutions to capture more white spaces, or unlock new formats, or really build solutions that we can scale for, I don't know, different price tiers, for example. So I think these dimensions are really critical. But in the end, I mean, it's really the democratization that's the key word to get it done.
No, I completely agree with you. And if I have to paraphrase this, the real goal might not be a brilliant RGM team, but it is a commercially brilliant business that has absorbed the fundamentals of RGM thinking so deeply that it no longer needs to ask the RGM team, I need this, I need that, and this kind of analysis and all those things. I think the function's ultimate success is making itself partially redundant, if not at all fully redundant at the execution layer. But as you said, becoming very, very important and consequential at the governance or the HQ level or a corporate layer, wherein it can guide all those decisions on the ground.
If I had a comment there, I think the objective, sure, at least as I build functions, is you need to make the RGM team less critical over time and not more. And that's when the real success, success isn't when every decision flows for RGM, right? It's actually when RGM thinking becomes embedded in sales, finance, marketing, how they operate every day, and that is the kind of the secret recipe actually behind all this.
Exactly.
I think if I may just build on one thing there, a finance team obviously will never go away, right? So it will always be there because they're the gatekeepers of ensuring that we're taking the right decisions, right? And I think, of course, we don't need an army of RGM people, but if we don't have an RGM team, we will end up losing that as well. So I think we also kind of went through that space of making ourselves redundant. I don't think that that's the way, in the sense of if a marketeer, a sales guy, will never be the RGM expert. They will never be. They will never be the finance expert either, or the marketing expert. So I think the relevance of how this really empowers the organization to take better decisions and to really be very, very strong commercially speaking, of course, driving that sustainable growth is key, right? So, and I think that this is the role of this function, to really connect the dots between the different areas. And of course, again, we don't need the army, but we need the expertise there.
Well, definitely. That's why. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was gonna you got me all excited on this. This is the central challenge we all face, right? It's from a world where I call Harry or Nuno and I say, "Do it for me," to a world where I say, "I've done it. Can you look at it?" Or I'm thinking about this problem. Can you help me? That fundamentally transforms the role of RGM. Will always exist, but boy, you're better when that's the place you're at.
Exactly. I was just saying that only. Thank you so much, Colin, for putting it very nicely. Next section is where I'll pair a couple of you and ask one question to both of you. And the first question is to the pair of Harry and Colin. Both of you have talked about shift from RGM as an analytics reporting function to RGM as a true strategic decision-making partner. Harry, you've described this as moving upstream onto the commercial planning process. Colin, you've framed it as a democratizing RGM thinking across the whole business. Now, rather than asking whether these two are different destinations, please tell us, are these actually two complementary steps on the same journey? And if so, what comes first?
Well, I'll start. I actually enjoy partnering with Colin on this one. We just recently did a price spec architecture workshop, and one theme that we kept coming back was this, how RGM evolves in stages, right? So, and it's not something you switch on and off overnight. It's a progression in both what I say capability and the mindset. So stages, right? So stage one, that's where most companies begin. Reporting function. The focus is explaining what already happened, right? The pricing results, the promo performance, the margin analysis, and finance will love it. Finance will embrace it first because it creates visibility, but it still sits downstream from decision making, right? And then the stage two, that's where the real transformation begins, right? It moves upstream. Instead of explaining what happened last quarter, it starts shaping the next quarter. And rather than reviewing the promo calendar after it's finalized, RGM helps build it. Instead of analyzing the trade spend after negotiations already close, commercial guardrails you have to establish before sales even enters the customer meetings. You have to embed RGM into the annual planning process, price pack strategy, innovation, commercialization, customer investment decisions, and even we get invited into growth-related capex decisions as well, right? When you do those decisions, but the result is better decision making. I think that's the key. Like for example, in that workshop we did, like the price pack architecture becomes more proactive when you do this stage two instead of very reactive, right? So the mix and pack strategies that you have to test them for profitability before you even reach the retailer. But this is also the hardest phase. The moving upstream will create friction in the organization. Sales may feel challenged, finance will feel more protective, and then the leadership will want proof, right? Before granting revenue management an earlier seat at the table. So that's why my view is you cannot democratize what hasn't been first proven, right? I mean, you need to earn that upstream seat one decision at a time, one day at a time. And then the last stage, like the stage three that Colin is very vocal, and he always mentions this, like his perspective becomes especially powerful. And the point is, how do you democratize across the organization? I think you can only democratize a capability that has credibility, right? And if you haven't earned that upstream seat yet, you can spread all the tools you want, and you'll just spread more confusion into the organization. Mm-hmm. And you'll hand people a compass, but before anyone even agreed what the destination is, right? I think that's the key. Like give them a compass, hand them a compass before anyone knows what the destination is. So, again, Colin, I'd like you to build on that, because that's where the real multiplier effect begins.
Yeah, no, I this is the fun part. I think that upstream is right, and Harry's right. You don't get there at step one or phase one, but think about how your job as an RGM practitioner evolves, right? In the early stages, you spend most of your energy with sales and finance, right? And you're driving tactical decision making. We talk a lot about sunlight, then action, right? You're providing sunlight to new things, promo, performance, pricing, action, etc. Once you create that sunlight, now you can create different actions. Hey, in light of what you've just learned, can you make a different decision? But for me, then, as you go upstream, two things happen. One, what you should be building is more scalable beyond just RGM. Right? So you're not trying to design that 15th tool. You're trying to help your organization understand what's the tool we will all use, right, to measure whatever that might be. And second, you're not designing a compass anymore. You're designing Google Maps that helps you understand where do you want to go and what are the places that you go to get there, right? It's that sort of forward-looking piece. To do that, though, I think like what I've found in our experiences as you go upstream and you try to embed further in the process, democratizing looks a little different. It's different people. So think about, go to PPA for a second. If you're in the tactical, I got to execute promotions place, the people you are influencing are sales and finance people. If you're now at the upstream PPA place, the people you really need to be with you are your operations people and your insights people, right? And if they don't really understand what it is that you are after, enough about how to wield RGM for productive outcomes, you end up in doom loops where you design things you cannot produce, or you come up with ideas that are not consumer centered, et cetera. And so you can imagine that your focus has to shift a little bit on how do I influence those people? What do they need? What do they bring to the conversation? One small example, as we design PPA strategy, and I'd be curious Nuno's perspective as he does a lot of this work too.
Yeah.
One of the must-have people in that room is the person that owns your capability building in your factories, right? Because you have to have that person understand, where am I trying to go 2 or 3 years from now? And how do I architect the right capability? And if that person just shows up, but doesn't understand anything about RGM or what PPA looks like or how to build it, they're not really that helpful. Not because they don't want to be helpful, they just don't know how to be helpful. And so how do you help them understand, what are you after? How do you, as that operations voice, play the right role that says, Nuno, I get where you're trying to go. Can I offer a few suggestions to make it faster, more sustainable, and produce more at scale? Yes, I would love those. And now you've built some power, but that requires different thinking, different way of democratizing, and frankly, a different sort of set of people around the table. But that's where the value gets sustained, such that I can go take a vacation and the thing works without me having to be in the room driving it at every step.
I can reply to that, and I can just be a testimony of that. So it's just day and night when you bring all key let's say stakeholders to the party, right? So when you're thinking about your long-term, let's say PPA roadmap, so to speak, for example, right, or even your growth plan, you need to bring all the key elements. This is not a, let's say, a drawing exercise, right? So it's, how does this actually make a difference for our sales guys when they talk to customers and they say, well, but I don't have the right plan, right? Well, you have an opportunity to create it. Come in, or the marketeers where they say, oh, but I'm losing share, I cannot drive penetration, and all of a sudden you're having a seat at the table. And as Colin is saying, typically, we create more complexity than otherwise, right? Unless we do things meaningfully and with the right intent to say, I want to have the right complexity, right? Specifically thinking about PPA, I want to drive a portfolio architecture that actually, delivers against my shopper jobs to be done, or actually allows, my customer to capture more baskets, right? So, and so on and so forth, right? So I think, and by driving that conversation, all of a sudden everybody is actually co-creating, and we are in the space of driving an agenda that is actually benefiting everybody, and not just the RGM agenda or a specific kind of tactical move.
Correct. And with this, the next pair is Nuno and Colin. Colin, you have been experimenting with AI pilots and use cases more than most. And Nuno, you and Harry, in a recent webinar, you had predicted that AI will fundamentally change how RGM organizations operate. More automation, more democratized access to complex analytics. Between the two of you, what is the one AI use case in RGM that has genuinely delivered results so far, and which ones are still a lot of promise?
Yeah,
go, Colin?
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to take the rest of our 28 minutes to give you this answer. This is such a fun space. I will make one small plug for those of you on this phone. If you are not in some form of an AI tool every day for 5 minutes, you're missing out. You've got to get in and play. These things are moving so quickly, and I will speak just for us, but I think for many of us in the RGM space, whether we like it or not, our organizations look at us as thought leaders here. How do I use some of this nascent, now pretty well-developed technology? We've spent a lot of time talking about the myriad use cases across RGM, agentic, true agent-to-agent-based modeling, generative. I actually think there's a ton of data work you have to do to really make agentic work. There's tons of promise here. I'll be really honest. I have not yet seen the fruit of much of that yet. And it's not AI's fault, it's our fault, right? It's our own workflows, our own data, all of that. We're going to get there. And when we get there, it's going to be awesome. The fastest wins I've seen to date have been on the generative side. Part of that democratization, we talk about trust, is I don't understand the black box. Why did I get this recommendation? Or can you help me understand this thing? Or all of that. And I found that generative capability, even basic ones that allow me to chat with something that says, how did you do that? Or how did that work? Or I have a question here is quite powerful. So we've actually been rolling out curriculum at scale here, where we try to give everybody bite-sized pieces of what you need to know. And we pair it with very simple generative capability that allows you almost to have an expert put their arm around your shoulder, come by your side, and you can meet that person where they are. There's a lot of power in that. And so that's, I think, the earliest use cases we've seen that we can drive real scale very quickly as we build our way to the agentic capabilities that I think unlock other things down the road.
Sure.
I would build on that. I'm not as far as Colin is on the journey. I'm completely second the point on data strategy and the integrity of data. So without this, AI just makes really poor data look poorly sophisticated. It's kind of a little bit the same, but in a sophisticated manner. I think where it really is working, it's really enabling a lot of speed and a lot of agility. I agree with Colin on how generative really enables us to also kind of democratize a lot, because it's so much simple, but for us it's still a long way to go. It's still a big way to go there. And simple things like in price, mix decomposition, promo diagnostics, and really of the speed to insight. These are the typical kind of use cases that make a difference and getting a really, let's say, a stronger, let's say, tailwind. Of course, scenario planning improves significantly because it really powers up the way that we can have complex decisions make become more simple. And I think where I would be a little bit more cautious is kind of the fully autonomous or agentic AI making kind of end-to-end recommendations. I think there's a lot of people saying that they're there. I haven't seen anything that we can say this is okay, so this really works, because it's very complex, right? I think it's kind of that holy grail that everybody's looking for. We have been investigating that for a long time, but it's very complex. I think it will be what we want to do. I think we are taking a decision to really go step by step, but obviously and I think will really accelerate our muscle. Will really accelerate productivity of decisions and agility of what we need to do to get the execution done.
No, definitely. Apart from individual productivity, sorry, faster post-event analytics, as you said, Nuno and Colin, both of you, scenario planning that used to take weeks now can be done in hours. Insights a sales rep or a commercial, a person can pull without us waiting for 3 days for an analyst. All those things are definitely moving in the right direction. They are faster now. As Colin mentioned, the agentic autonomous applications are very much possible technically, and even the complex ones are possible, but they are still not trusted. The main thing is data, as both of you mentioned. Definitely data needs to exist in a certain format, certain form, and not in silos owned by different teams, but at a single place wherein they can be connected, they can be collectively mined upon, and then AI can give you the better results on obviously on top of that. Next is Harry and Nuno. Harry, you mentioned that attracting and retaining the right talent becomes harder when the function is still seen as tactical, which is right. And Nuno, you connected this directly. The more strategic the function becomes, the easier it is to attract better talent, and the better talent amplifies everything else. How do you actually accelerate that flywheel? And what is the first move a leader should take?
Yes, accelerating the flywheel, right? So I think the first move is actually simple, but it's the one that most organizations get wrong, right? So you have to elevate the work. First, elevate the work before you can even elevate the talent, right? Because the top talent, they don't want to spend their careers producing reports that nobody acts on, right? So they want to influence decisions, they want to shape strategy, they want to solve meaningful commercial problems. That's what top talent looks for. And if you position RGM as an analytics function only, you'll eventually struggle to attract and retain these great people. And when you look at the industry, the best talent gravitates towards areas where they can actually create, disproportionate impact. And for me, the flywheel that you mentioned starts the moment when revenue management becomes part of the decision-making process. When the function starts influencing pricing strategy, portfolio roadmap. Let's say in our company at Ajinomoto, we are building a 2030 roadmap, right? Innovation, commercialization, customer negotiations, annual planning. That's when the quality of talent you attract changes almost immediately, because now the role feels more strategic and it becomes more commercially relevant and not just analytical. And once that strong talent enters, they elevate the capability even further. And they ask, because strong talent, what do? They ask better questions, they challenge the assumptions, they can connect the functions more effectively. It's fine. It's that unicorn, I would say, is individuals who can actually think about growth, margin, mix, execution, all at the same time. And again, I would say the greater influence kind of roles attract better talent. But I think another clear signal, if you look into your organization, is, do you have employees, let's say from other functions, not just your analytical people, wanting to rotate into revenue management? Does sales, marketing, high potential leaders in the organization at Nestle, Unilever, Coke, Pepsi, Ajinomoto, one of the leading companies out there when it comes to amino science industry, is like, do they see revenue management as a career accelerator or more like a support function? And I think, I have seen this, the perception needs to change. And most importantly, maybe the last one is, do leadership at the C level pull you into the conversations earlier? Not to validate the decisions after the fact, but help them shape it. Right? At that point, the organization is no longer asking, can revenue management analyze this? They're asking, should we make this decision without revenue management being in the room? And that's when the function really becomes truly self-reinforcing.
I think you already told everything that I had to tell. I'll just add two things. So we started this capability a decade ago in this company, saying that revenue management should be, let's say, the preparation to become a GM, right? And we really clearly spelled that out as a way to obviously attract a strong pool of talent. But it's not just about saying that you're the before chamber to becoming a GM. It's walking the talk, as Harry just really kind of beautifully described, right? So it's about having that elevating the mandate, the responsibility and the role within the decision making process. And I think the last piece I would say that it's hiring the best talent is also something that I think it needs a bit of let's say in-depth view, right? So RGM leaders, I believe, that have to have a bit of a rare mix of talent, between strategic vision or insight, having a good commercial instinct, that analytical depth. And I think very, very important to have a strong set of skills around influencing. And of course, courage to challenge, to put the voice higher when the moment comes, and build constructive, challenges around the business. So I think I would these 2 points would be my only two additional comments around this.
Oh, sure. I think when organizations start looking at the RGM team, and folks from that team are going to lead the commercial functions or marketing functions or general management roles, I think that's when it will become more and more strategic, and people will start looking at this function that they can grow further beyond RGM and got to lead the other functions as well. I think that's where the change should start seeping in. Moving to the other section, wherein I'm going to ask one question to all three of you, and any one of you can start. If you could rewind 10 years and give one piece of advice to your younger self, something you wish you had known sooner about building RGM as a true commercial leadership function, what would it be?
I would recommend myself to invest a lot in data strategy. It would have made my life much easier,
Definitely.
and I would, yeah, um, build a very, very good case to advance, to introduce advanced analytics much sooner in my life. Data scientists, bringing some nice tech, not very utterly complicated, but those kind of steps that
Yeah.
can really accelerate the insight into action.
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
Colin?
Sure. No, I would second Nuno's. I would also do that. Data to me is the number one thing I would go, but I can't do that, so I'll pick a second one. I
Sorry, Colin.
would. No, it's the best answer. That's why we did that. I would have looked hard at the incentives earlier. You manage what you measure. And I think it's really important to understand that and then be able to influence that at the beginning, not in the middle of the journey.
Sure.
I think, I would tell myself, do not build a revenue management function to be smarter than the business. Build it to be embedded in it.
Yeah.
It is what I eventually learned. It took me a lot of scars to learn this, but you can be completely right and completely irrelevant at the same time. If the people making decisions, they do not trust the framework, they don't understand the output, or they were not involved in building it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good your analysis, it will have no commercial impact. And, the seat that you have to earn, again, I wish I knew this 10 years ago, is be the most useful one, right? Useful to sales when they're under pressure, useful to finance when their numbers do not add up, useful to C-level when the answer isn't that obvious, right? And that usefulness, consistently delivered one day at a time, over time, it's what turns that function into a commercial leadership, what I will call a capability. And again, the shift changes. The kind of key shift that changed for me was realizing that the successful revenue management leaders spend as much time building organization alignment as they do building the analytical capability, and probably even more.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll move on to the final section. And sorry, audience, we'll just take 5 more minutes to finish this and we'll move on to your questions. And to the speakers, this will be one word answer or one sentence answer at max. 10 to 20 seconds is what you get to answer these things. Okay, rapid fire, really rapid fire. So I'll start with the skill RGM leaders most underrate. Harry, you can go first.
Most underrated skill, commercial storytelling. Knowing which story to tell to whom, at what moment, what level of detail.
Okay. Colin?
Same, storytelling.
I would say influence. If you're not able to influence, I mean, it's very difficult to tell a story. Data and so on, it's kind of a commodity, but influence is a precious value, I think.
I know the answer to this one. I'm still asking, agentic AI in RGM, overhyped or underestimated? Colin?
Underestimated. Lots of promise. Just got to get the data right.
I would say overhyped in the short term, underestimated in the medium term. Let me put it this way.
Harry?
Okay, well, I'll say both at the same time, but for different reasons, right? So I can say underestimated, the speed at kind of like at which it restructures, who does what, but what's already working is scenario modeling is working, right? The pricing scenarios across 60 SKUs in 15 different markets, you can run them overnight. But almost there, the signals, like the agents that flag the under delivering promos, the agents that tell you real-time adjustments before the cycle closes, stuff like that is, I think, it's almost there. So I would say probably both at the same time for probably different reasons.
Okay. The book or a podcast or a person that shaped how you think about RGM, or the components of it, pricing, promotion, and PPS, those kind of things. Nuno?
Well, the boss I had in my early Coke days, were I had it also in another step in my career, but taught me that, the value of strategy plus influence, it's equal to really strong execution, right? So that's the way to get things done. And I would also add that, I learned the hard way that RGM without RTM is just a bit of a paper exercise, right? So that would be my my answer there.
Harry?
Well, if you want to read a book that is about human behavior, read a book called like Priceless by William Poundstone. And the reason I say that is when I was in college, I was a chemical engineer. Um, we were very analytical, but there was a very smart professor that once told me, "Harry, don't be an engineer just for the sake of being an engineer. Learn about behavioral science, learn about consumer psychology, learn about the storytelling working together." So, and you realize revenue management works best when you actually understand human psychology more than you actually understand economics. So, it's a nice book. It's called Priceless by William Poundstone.
Okay. We're going to buy this one next. Colin?
Saurabh, it's like we planned these, though we didn't. I would actually give you a more of a behavioral book as well. If I could pick one that shaped how I approach this job, it's The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
I think what we do is create a series of tipping points. So I'd encourage you to read it. Really good read.
Good
Definitely.
answer.
One last question. What drew you to RGM and what keeps you here? We can start with you, Colin.
Me, I believe very, very strongly that this is the future skill set of commercial leaders in this space. And so I tell that to my people all the time. We are building in you, you're building in yourselves what it takes to be a GM tomorrow. And so that's what excites me about this space. And then I believe we sit right in the middle, whether we like it or not, of all the commercial action. Some days that can be infuriating when you're, oh my gosh, I got 45 people calling me, but you are in the middle of it. And so I think that's what keeps me here.
Harry?
Same, center, intersection, whatever you want to call it, Colin, 100% agree. Strategy. You want to work in a function that has strategy, analytics, consumer behavior, finance, sales, execution, you can find it in revenue management. So that kind of drew me. And it really does well if you are intellectually a curious person by nature. You need to understand the people and not just numbers. You need to understand behavior and not just data. So you need to be very adaptable. And if you are a person that can adapt fast to a market, to a consumer, to a retailer, this is the place for you.
I agree. It's connecting the dots. It's really making everything really, resonate a lot. It's making sure, that strategy meets execution. So I just fully second these two gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, gentlemen. I quickly move on to the questions that have been asked by the audience on the chat. Harry, the first one is for you from Renzi. When building RGM from scratch, how do you think about the ownership of the pricing guardrails between finance and RGM?
The strategy piece, I think, sits with the revenue management function, and the finance piece is more like, I would say, the governance piece, right? So, and obviously, the finance job involves a lot of forecasting process, review of the business, and working with the revenue management function. So, I think they overlap to the extent where they wouldn't know if you talk to any finance person, they would not know how the market is behaving. They wouldn't necessarily have insights to competitive intelligence. So you have to see both the internal data and as well as the external to connect. So revenue management is, I would say, the connective tissue there, and that connects the market dynamics to, and brings it and influences how finance actually builds their forecast and their plans.
Got it. Colin, next question is for you from Vishal. Nestle USA has an incredibly diverse brand portfolio. When you are democratizing RGM thinking across the breadth, how do you prioritize which brands or categories get advanced RGM capability first, and what criteria drive that decision?
Yeah, super good question. To me, it's two. First is the willingness of that operator to act, right? Who is it and will they make a decision? And then second is the impact that it can have, right? You can't always pick really small things that don't scale. Sometimes you can, but find places that the impact will be big enough for it to make a difference. And you find that person or group that really wants to go drive an action. And if you find those, you go fast.
Got it. Nuno, the next one is for you by Sudha. As RGM becomes more democratized and AI assisted, how do you see the role of the central RGM team changing over time? Will it shrink? Will it grow? Evolve into strategic importance? What does the team look like in 5 years from now?
Well, I think, look, there is the tech team that will continue to and need to continue to enhance and to evolve the system, really ensuring that you have the right data, the right data strategy, the right kind of, the what feeds into the pipe so that we have that automatically, stepping into different ways or different, let's say, levels, right? I think that, the way that things are moving, it seems that, we will probably have our own tools evolving and upgrading and so on. I think that, you will continue to have and you will continue to need people that really understand, the from and to and what needs to feed into the machine, and so that it can really be able to spit what we need to take the right decision. So right now, I think from a tech side, probably we'll need less people going forward. I think from a business side, we will continue to have the need for people to understand and to really use and leverage and learn and land.
Got it. Harry, I think there are. I'll take one question from each of you. One more each. Harry, there's a question by Dave saying, when RGM is still seen as technical inside an organization, budgets and headcounts are always the first to get squeezed. How do you make the business case for RGM investment in a language that a CFO actually responds to? I think we talked about this in one of our questions, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, CFOs want return on investments.
Yeah.
CFOs look for impact and capturing the value. They want scale, right? They want profitable growth. Their language is about shareholder value. So every analytics, whether it's a commercial decision, a distribution decision, a brand decision, a capex decision, always tied to shareholder returns, company returns. I think that's when the organizational also maturity increases. You embed it to the finance team. You embed that mindset into other functions. I try to do hopefully a decent job in communicating with my finance leaders, speaking the same language, right? Then you can resonate, and that's why I think it's enormous. Sometimes they think about basis points, they think about margins, expansions. So just speak that language, bring it to finance terms, and they will definitely continue supporting you.
Definitely. They love ROI, and obviously they love to expand as well. Bottom line is sometimes they want to look at more closely, but they are also excited by top line growth as well. So I'm sure
Exactly.
when you show them those numbers and you back them up, I think they are your best friends.
Yeah, make them
Uh,
visible, like make them
yeah,
tangible. I think that's the key. Like tangible, visible impact. That's what they want.
exactly. Colin, next up for you is you have been experimenting with AI pilots across the RGM function. When a pilot does not deliver the expected result, what does a good failure looks like? Good question. And how do you make sure the organization still keeps moving forward rather than pulling back?
Yeah, you will fail. If you are not failing, you are not trying hard enough. You are not experimenting fast enough. So I think the key is, are you learning something you can apply to the next one that makes the next one more successful or a better chance to be successful? And as long as that's the case, you keep pushing the ball forward.
Yeah, I think so. You also believe in learn fast, fail fast, and move on.
Yes.
Next iteration. Yeah. Nuno, last question for you from Nick. He's saying, operating at a global level means you are constantly navigating the tension between global RGM strategy and local market execution. Where does that tension most often break down, and how do you adapt and resolve it without losing either consistency or relevance?
Look, we try to actually work together and not build different alternatives. So and for us, the most important let's say priority is that the market responds to its consumers, right? I cannot think about what is the solution for Argentina or for Canada without really having a very clear understanding of what is the issue, what is the opportunity, what's the issue that we're trying to solve, or let's say the business wide space that we have there, right? So I think what we try to do as well as, centrally to make sure, that we are meaningfully opening the spaces that will obviously resonate in a lot of markets, right? So it's kind of um, uh, uh, a connection between local and global, and the short and the long term that doesn't always, really, fit perfectly. But I think that the art is in adapting, adjusting, and making sure, that the solutions are really fit for purpose. We do a lot of work with the markets. We do a lot of long-term planning with them as well, because that's the moment where, the global strategy
Yeah.
really intersects with the needs, with the opportunities, and with the solutions that we can create. And that also enables us to actually build unlocks that go beyond just the commercial strategy. Maybe there's actually a very strong, constraint in terms of what we can produce, what we can deliver, and what we can actually sell, right? And I think that in bringing that longer term vision, all of a sudden, enables some very different conversations to the ones that we typically would actually tease from a revenue management perspective. But those are the ones that actually, provoke transformational changes in the business as we go forward. So I think it's a bit of a coordination. We do not compete, in all honesty. We do not
Yeah.
compete with the local markets. We really hold hands and work together. Of course, there are moments where we say, but you're not seeing this, or you're not seeing that, or they say, you're not seeing this, and you say, okay, let's go. So I think it's really, let's say, a good constructive challenging approach.
Sure. I think Harry, you must have seen this as well, and Colin as well. If you have any points to add over here, global versus local execution.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is I think the last point you made is the most important. There has to be a bit of constructive tension, but we got to be on the same team. And if we don't perceive to be on the same team, it just doesn't work.
Sure.
Couldn't say better. Yeah, I mean, understanding the multinational nuances is very key.
Yes.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of, like, for example, Southeast Asia. I work for a Japanese company, right? So, they have large populations. They have, rising consumer spending. They have highly fragmented, retail environments. So, just, I would say, pay attention to the market level details.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is all the time we had, gentlemen. Harry, Colin, Nuno, thank you so much for participating over here and giving us, the nuggets of your wisdom across the RGM process that we've learned from you in the last 1 hour has been amazing. This is exactly the kind of honest, practitioner-led conversations that makes this series different. Thanks to all the speakers who have attended here in the past series as well. For everyone joining, follow Pulsar Analytics for Series 7 details. This is it for the evening. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Good day.